Miami, South Beach.
Did I wake up today with the intention of making another History Time episode? No, I did not. Am I going to? Of course. You guys like my nifty little presentation? I'm quite proud of it. So anyway, today I'm going to be talking about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was an inspirational statesman, writer, speaker, and leader. He served as Britain's Conservative Prime Minister from 1940 to 1945 and from 1951 to 1955. He is most famous for leading Britain to victory in the Second World War. Winston Churchill was born on November 30th, 1874 in Blenheim Palace, Oxfordshire, and he was of rich aristocratic ancestry. Even though he received poor grades in school, his early interest in the military saw him join the Royal Cavalry in 1895. As a soldier and part-time journalist, Churchill traveled widely, including trips to Cuba, Afghanistan, Egypt, and South Africa. Alright, so I'm going to hold this paper for the rest of the video because I was having too hard of a time remembering everything. So, he was elected as Conservative MP for Oldham in 1900 before switching to the Liberal Party in 1904 and spending the next decade climbing the ranks of the Liberal government. Churchill was First Lord of the Admiralty by the time of the disastrous Gallipoli campaign which he created. Heavily criticized for his error, he resigned from this position and traveled to the Western Front to fight himself. During the time of the interwar, Churchill switched back to the Conservative Party. He served as Chancellor of Exchequer in 1924, when he controversially opted for Britain to rejoin the gold standard. Following the Tory electoral defeat in 1929, Churchill lost his seat and spent much of the next 11 years out of office, mainly writing and making speeches. Although he was alone in his firm opposition to Indian independence, his warnings against the appeasement of Nazi Germany were proven correct when the Second World War broke out in 1939. Churchill was given a spot on the War Cabinet and was named the First Lord of the Admiralty after war was declared when Hitler invaded Poland. The Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, resigned his position when Hitler invaded Norway and defeated the Allied forces. Chamberlain did this because of a poor result in a no-confidence vote. As a result, Winston Churchill was named the next Prime Minister in 1940. He then created the Special Operations Executive, which held secret missions in German-held territory. He also set up the Commando Forces, which developed into the Special Forces. Later in 1940, the British Expeditionary Force were sent in to help when German forces invaded France. They were overpowered by the Germans and ended up having to retreat. The soldiers of the BEF were then trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk and had to be evacuated over the next 9 days. Over 300,000 men were evacuated, and they had to leave most of their equipment behind. France later asked Churchill to send British fighter planes to hold off the Germans, but he refused. Churchill knew that his planes would not be very effective in holding them off. Plus he knew that he would need the planes to protect Britain from German attacks. Hitler then began to plan the invasion of England after taking complete control of France. He ordered bombing raids on the country. He told his bombers not to bomb cities, but they mistakenly bombed the outskirts of London. After this, Churchill ordered the bombing of German cities, and Hitler followed this with bombings of more English cities. The French admiral said that the fleet would not allow themselves to be taken over, but Churchill didn't want to risk it and ordered the British Navy to attack them. They attacked on July 3, 1940, destroying many ships and killing around 1,300 French sailors. During the Battle of Britain, Churchill gave many speeches with the intention of lifting the spirits of the citizens and the soldiers. The British were able to hold off German attacks, and Hitler was no longer capable of invading England. Since the Germans now had control of France, Churchill was worried that the French fleet stationed in French Algeria would be given to them. The French admiral said that the fleet would not allow themselves to be taken over, but Churchill didn't want to risk it and ordered the British Navy to attack them. They attacked on July 3, 1940, destroying many ships and killing around 1,300 French sailors. Now Churchill knew that he needed alliances with other countries if England was going to defeat Germany. He first asked the United States, who refused to join the war but agreed to sell supplies. The U.S. later joined the war after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Even though Churchill was very anti-communist, he asked the Soviet Union if they wanted to ally forces. Joseph Stalin agreed to join forces after the Germans attacked the Soviets. Churchill was going to have to work hard to make the alliance work, so he attended many meetings to talk about how the war was going to go. At these meetings, he came to many agreements with his allies about who would get what when the war was over. Later, after the invasion of Normandy and the stopping of a civil war in Greece, Churchill helped organize Operation Fortitude. This operation was designed to confuse the Germans about where they were going to be attacked. This caused the Germans to waste resources trying to hold off multiple positions from possible attacks. On May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered to the Allies after Hitler committed suicide. Their surrender was accepted less than 24 hours later, ending the war. It is very possible that this war would not have been won if it weren't for the help of Winston Churchill. After a little bit more mild political activity, Winston Churchill died 20 years later in 1965 and was honored with a state funeral. Well, this will conclude my presentation, so have a great day, everybody, and victory out.